What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to FFL Weekly, your one-stop shop for news and notes from around the league. I'm your host, Lincoln, and I will be taking you through an excellent week of fantasy football. We, of course, are talking about Week 10, which was nothing but fireworks. And I don't even mean an output of a bunch of points. I'm just saying there were freaking games that went down to the wire, and none bigger than America's Game of the Week, where Bangers and Mash comes back at the very last second, the very last play of Monday Night Football to snatch a 90-88 victory. Thank you to Devontae Smith for fumbling that football in the lateral. I know he's just trying to make a play to get his team to win the game. The laterals at the end of the game are always just for show. They never work unless you're talking about the Miami Miracle. In this case, it did not work. He lost a few points, and that becomes the difference. Bangers and Mash moves on to 9-1, and King Nick drops to 7-3. This game was insane. Everybody was underperforming practically. Kirk Cousins was the spot starter for Bangers. He only dropped 17 points. Alvin Kamara had a pretty terrible game, only 7.5. Cooper Kupp was playing with the backup quarterback who could not throw him the frickin' ball whatsoever. They had no timing. He had 2.9 points before he got injured in the fourth quarter. Just some terrible stuff from Cooper Kupp. Gerald Everett also got injured, and he only had 4.3 points on 2 targets. And for King Nick, his players didn't do too well either. I mean, when you start looking down the list, Tua had an excellent game, 29 points. James Conner himself had an excellent game, 23 points. But aside from them, they just had some big letdowns. First of all, there was no defense to score any points. His kicker only got him 2. Chase Claypool only had 1.8, and Taysom Hill only had 3 carries for 1 yard, 0.1 points. Also, receiver Amari Cooper, getting locked up by Xavier Howard, only caught 3 catches for 32 yards for 6.2 fantasy points. So a narrow escape for Bangers and Mash. I don't know how they keep getting away with this, but they are 9-1, sole position of first place in the FFL standings. Moving on, it's hard to upstage that, but we're going down to look at the Hogs with the other game that went right down to the wire. They beat the High Rollers by 1 point. What a freaking week of football for the FFL, 134.9 to 133.5. So this game actually had points. People were actually scoring in this game, and it was just trading haymakers back and forth. David was at a point saying, GG's, Nick Chubb's going to kill me, I'm going to lose, blah, blah, blah. And the second he said that, Dalvin Cook scored an 80-yard touchdown to get him back in the game. Overall, every single catch, every single run, every single touchdown made a difference. 134 to 133. An incredible game from Dak Prescott. He had 265 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, so he ends up with only 25.2 when his numbers look a little bit better than that. But as the previously mentioned, Dalvin Cook, 23.6 points on 119 yards rushing and that long touchdown. Travis Etienne had kind of a down week, but when he has a down week, it's still double digits. He only had 10.3 points. He's looking to bounce back in the future. Chris Godwin had a very good game, 6 catches on 8 targets, 71 yards and a touchdown for himself. And Foster Moreau, I know he had a drop touchdown that would have just given him an explosion of a week, but he still caught 3 catches, he still had 43 yards, and he still had another touchdown. So 13.3 points for the spot start, and he is looking like he might just be the Hogs' long-term starter, so long as Darren Waller stays on injured reserve. For the High Rollers, it was a pretty down game from Justin Herbert. I mean, he's playing the vaunted San Francisco defense. He can only muster 14 points, and that's without his weapons, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Also, Gerald Everett got injured. So to be honest, you can't give him too much blame there. And going down the list, Devontae Adams had an excellent game. He had 9 catches on 14 targets, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 10 catches on 11 targets for 119 yards, 22.1 points without a touchdown. That is excellent. And Aaron Jones had an incredible game himself. He didn't have too much receiving work, only 2 catches for 18 yards, but he still managed 23.6 points thanks to 138 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So this game was just simply excellent, and it allows David to tie records with the High Rollers. Both teams now are 4-6. In fact, there were quite a few teams right on that bubble of 4-6, 3-7. So the last seeds for the playoffs surely are going to be a fist fight. Moving on now, the Multiverse taking on the Rejects, and this one was not too close. It ended up being a 24-point win. The Multiverse gets it done. They have their 4th win in a row. Unfortunately, the Rejects, this is their 5th loss in a row. Wonky gets the win, 131 to 107, a 24-point victory. And The dude who is on track to become the NFL MVP above Jalen Hurts, above Tua Tagovailoa. It's Patrick fucking Mahomes. 331 yards, 4 touchdowns thrown, 39.14 points. This man is incredible. This man is unstoppable. He has scored 32 or more points in 4 of his last 5 games, including 3 straight. Just incredible performance from Patrick Mahomes. Derrick Henry actually had a pretty down game. He only had 53 yards rushing, only had 8.7 points, and somehow, in a down week for Derrick Henry, the multiverse is still dropping 131. That certainly is scary. And it's not like Najee Harris took over the backfield for the multiverse. He only had 9.9, so neither he had a freaking double-digit game. What it really came down to was that Patty-Kelsey combo, because Travis Kelce had 81 yards on 6 catches and a touchdown, so he scores 20 points. And Rondale Moore for the Arizona Cardinals, he is looking like an excellent security blanket for anyone who's behind center, whether it's Kyler Murray or Colt McCoy. He had 9 catches on 13 targets, 94 yards. Cliff Kingsbury sure loves setting up screens for this guy, to the dismay of Arizona Cardinals fans around the world. Now, looking at the rejects, they had a decent game from Josh Allen. He was playing in spite of the injury. He threw for 330 yards, so that elbow's looking fine. He also had a touchdown, but he did have 2 interceptions. He did have a fumble lost, even though he had 84 yards rushing on the ground. He only mustered 21.6 points. Now, when we're talking about a quarterback and we're saying only 21.6 points, you know you must be talking about a good one. And when we're talking about Josh Allen, you're talking about the number 1 overall scorer in fantasy football, despite all the negativity you can say. 6 interceptions in the last 3 weeks. Yes, that's true. But in the last 2 weeks, he's been QB3 and QB6. So nothing to worry about for Josh Allen. And he's doing all this, again, in spite of injury. Now, going down the list, let's look at the next game. Kermit the Frog gets the win, and they move to 6-4 with a win over Team Cardoso, who drops to 1-9 every day. With every passing day, it is looking like Team Cardoso will be the team to draft Bijan Robinson. And how about that backfield of Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall? That surely is formidable. Now, Kermit the Frog on the Bengals bye week, forced to start Trevor Lawrence. It ends up being a damn good decision. He has probably his best week of the season, 29 of 40 passing for an incredible completion percentage, incredible efficiency, 259 yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. He ends up with 24.9 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. Couldn't get the victory, but he still got a lot of yards, still got a lot of touchdowns. He was looking very efficient, and he was not the reason that they lost. And the Frogs can celebrate. This week was the return of Jonathan Taylor. 22 carries, 147 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. He barely had any receiving work, only 2 catches for 16 yards, and he still dropped 24.3 because he is freaking Jonathan Taylor. Can you believe Luke Sahuk traded this player away for Damian fucking Pierce? What a clown. Now, when you're looking down at the rest of the lineup, holy sweet Jesus, CeeDee Lamb had the breakout game of ages. 11 catches on 15 targets, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This dude destroyed that Green Bay secondary. My freaking goodness. And he shouldered the wide receivers this week because A.J. Brown did not have himself a good week. Kyle Pitts did not have himself a good week. DeAndre Swift did not have himself a good week. Neither of these players got double digits. In fact, Kyle Pitts could not hit 5 once again. And A.J. Brown, he was playing injured. He did play 78% of snaps, but he was only targeted 4 times. And with those 4 targets, he can only muster 1 catch for 7 yards. So he finishes with 1.7 points. But in spite of all these awful performances across the board, Kermit the Frog drops 125 points because Trevor Lawrence is that good, because Jonathan Taylor is that good, and because CeeDee Lamb is freaking elite. And speaking of elite, our final matchup of the day, rest in peace Pop Smoke, gets the 50-point dub. Oh wait, I'm reading that wrong. This is a 60-point dub over the Ragtag Titties, 153 to 94 points. An incredible week for rest in peace Pop Smoke. 25.8 for Jalen Hurts. He was incredible through the air on the ground. He got another rushing touchdown this week. Saquon Barkley looking incredible. He had 152 yards rushing on guess how many carries? 35. 35 carries for Saquon Barkley. He only had 1 catch for 8 yards, and he still put up 23 points just because of that incredible volume, and he had some pretty good efficiency with that volume too. Josh Jacobs looking great. He had a few down weeks in a row, and it's looking good, like he's back under form. 21 carries, 78 yards, a touchdown on the ground, and 6 catches for 28 yards. He finishes with 22.6, and my goodness, Justin Jefferson just took over that game. Buffalo could do nothing to stop him. They had their hands on the balls. They had him locked up. They were in his hip, and it was not close enough because Justin Jefferson loves to suck in those balls. And he drops 35.3 points, 10 catches on 16 targets, 193 yards, and a touchdown. And yes, he did have the best catch of all time in this game. And Justin Jefferson was not the only amazing receiver in this game. Across the field from him was Stephon Diggs, who had 16 targets of his own. In fact, he caught more balls. He had 12 catches on those 16 targets. He had 128 yards. He drops 24.8 points. Talk about elite. Rest in peace, Pop Smoke, scoring 153 points with George Kittle only dropping 3 and his flex only dropping 2.9. That is ridiculous. This team is elite. They are looking like a playoff contender. And as for the ragtag titties, they just did not have enough firepower. Cordero Patterson had a random bad week, only 6.4 points. I have no idea what they were doing with him because they only gave him 6 touches. He had 5 carries for 18 yards and only 1 catch on 1 target for 2 yards. So some definite misuse of that incredible weapon in that offense for Atlanta. But it's the same case for Kyle Pitts. They just need a quarterback change. They just need a coaching change. They just need a scheme change. And next year, hopefully, these weapons will be dropping more points. Another player with a surprising down week, Deebo Samuel. What is going on with Deebo Samuel? This dude only had 6 touches, 4 carries for 27 yards, 2 catches for 24 yards, only 7.1 points, and that is not what you drafted Deebo Samuel to do for your squad. So rest in peace, Pop Smoke moves to 6-4, and the Ragtag Titties drop to 3-7. And that's it for Week 10 of the FFL. We're moving on now to Week 11 of the FFL. FFL, Week 11. That hurt my voice? We're starting off strong, of course, with America's Game of the Week, where the Frogs take on the Multiverse. Now, the Frogs come into this game 6-4. The Multiverse are 7-3, so it's one of those situations. Whoever wins, whoever loses, both teams are still in the playoff hunt, and they're both above 500. Now, looking at this game, thankfully for the Frogs, he's got his players back off bye week, so Joe Burrow gets the start against Pittsburgh, Jonathan Taylor's going to be playing Philadelphia, DeAndre Swift's going to be playing the Giants, and A.J. Brown, this is the one to look at because he is playing the Indianapolis Colts. They have a new head coach. Who knows how that defense is going to be playing? They haven't been as great as they should be this year, but he is questionable, and he does say he'll be fine for Week 11. I am looking at the fantasy news. This is a lively recorded episode, but he did have a pretty bad week last week. He clearly was not healthy, only had 1 catch on 4 targets for 7 yards. Let's hope he's been healthy throughout the week, getting his rest, and he'll be good to go because he needs to be active and playing well for the Frogs to win this game. The Multiverse is no slouch. When we're talking about primetime matchups, oh boy, does the Multiverse have a lot of primetime matchups. First off, it's the running back, the king himself, Derrick Henry playing tonight against the Green Bay Packers. And then on Sunday Night Football, it's the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. So you know you got Pat Mahomes starting, and you know you got Travis Kelce too. We'll see that duo on Sunday Night Football. As for the Frogs, they do not have any primetime players, so they're going to be hoping once the 4 o'clock games are over, they're going to want to be up by 60, they're going to want to be up by 70, and it will not be enough. They are not going to be feeling comfortable about it because Pat Mahomes and Kelce are liable for 80 at any given freaking week. Moving on to the next matchup, we're looking at the 4-6 High Rollers taking on the 3-7 Rejects, and this is a game for the playoff bubble. These teams are on the outside looking in, and they're going to want to do everything in their power to secure a spot in La La Land. And once you're in the playoffs, we all know anything can happen. So this game is very pivotal for both teams, especially since they are on a combined 8-game losing streak. The Rejects have lost their last 5. The High Rollers have lost their last 3. So somebody's going to be ending the streak, and somebody is going to be piling onto it. This is an incredible game to watch. Looking down at the primetime matchups, you have Aaron Jones playing tonight against the Tennessee Titans, an excellent duo of running backs going head-to-head with Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones, but Derrick Henry's not in this game. He's just going to be in this actual NFL game on Amazon Prime. And the only other primetime matchup here for the High Roller is quarterback Justin Herbert. He's going to be playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Hopefully there's going to be a shootout. I know that his weapons have been injured throughout the year. Gerald Everett's questionable. Keenan Allen, you never know what's going on. Mike Williams, you never know what's going on. But hopefully Justin Herbert gets his guys back, and this can be a shootout because we sure would like a shootout on Thursday Night Football. Actually, on Sunday Night Football. Never mind. But now we're looking at the Rejects Revolution. Do they have any primetime players? No, they don't. So they're in the same situation with the Frogs where they're going to really want to be ahead by 30 or by 40 because you got to be waiting for Justin Herbert to play on Sunday Night Football. You're going to want to be up by just a few points, especially when he's playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and that might very well be a shootout. Going down the list now, we're looking at Rest in Peace Pop Smoke taking on the Hogs. And the Rest in Peace Pop Smoke, your favorite in this game. 90% of fans at home believing he'll take the dub. He is 6-4 going into it on a 2-game win streak, but the Hogs have won their last game. They themselves are on a 1-game win streak, and they are 4-6. They are hungry. They need to stack these dubs together. They want to make the playoffs, and it's going to have to start this week with an upset victory over Rest in Peace Pop Smoke. If you're looking down at the lineups, let's see, are there any primetime matchups? I am not seeing any so far, but we do have one for Rest in Peace Pop Smoke. George Kittle gets the Monday night matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, what's crazy is he played 100% of snaps last week against the Chargers, and he finished as the tight end 31 with only 1 catch on 2 targets for 21 yards. So he was not a factor last week. Hopefully he'll be a factor this week for Rest in Peace Pop Smoke to get it done. Now, looking at the next matchup, is there anybody left? Yes, there is. The last game of the week that we will be talking about. Actually, no, there are 2 more games that we got to talk about. First of all, we're looking at the 7-3 King Nick taking on the 3-7 Ragtag Titties. Now, King Nick, they did have that brutal loss, and that has got to sting because that was a game against Bangers and Mash where the winner of that probably would have taken over number 1 in the power rankings. Unfortunately, off some fluke last-second fumble on a lateral, he ends up losing, and he's trying to get back on record, getting that taste out of his mouth, and get another victory in that win column, get another tally in that win column, I believe as the saying goes, and move up to 8-3 on the year. That would be an incredible record. But as of now, he shares a record with the Miami Dolphins, and that is nothing to be ashamed about. Now, looking at the matchups for the week, it currently says that Ragtag Titties is starting Geno Smith at quarterback. I do not believe that'll be the case. I believe he'll be putting in Aaron Rodgers at some point before tonight's game. He is going to be your starter, and that would help the projections a little bit because right now it's projected to be 131 to 85. It'll probably be around 131 to 105 or 110 once Aaron Rodgers is back in the lineup, and he gets your primetime matchup for tonight. He'll be throwing the ball to Alan Lazard, who is also starting for the Ragtag Titties in your wide receiver 1 slot, and in your wide receiver 2 slot, it is Deebo Samuel, the boy himself, trying to get back on track against the Arizona Cardinals on Monday Night Football. And on Sunday night, there's two additional players for the Ragtag Titties. Joshua Palmer in the flex against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the kicker going against Los Angeles Chargers, Harrison Butker for your Kansas City Chiefs. Now, for King Nick, there's only one player in primetime. It's going to be running back James Conner. He'll be playing against the San Francisco 49ers, and he's going head-to-head against Deebo Samuel. So that will be an interesting matchup. Well, I got to put on that suit and clock in for my part-time job pretty soon, so I'm going to get this uploaded. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed FFL Weekly this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your football weekends. Take care.